Good morning, sir, and my fellow friends. My name is IPG, and today I will present my SCS 1152 Computational Thinking in Science project. The title of my project is Prediction of the Effect of Removing a Species from an Ecosystem. This project consists of two parts. The first part is an unplugged activity where the student learn through the hands-on classroom activities without using the digital devices. The second part is the plug-in activity where I transform the same science topic into an interactive Scratch program. The purpose of this project is not only to help the student understanding the ecosystem interaction, but also develop their computational thinking skills. By combining the science knowledge with the computational thinking, the student can learn to analyze the problem logically, predict the outcome, and evaluate their ideas and make a better decision based on the evidence. During this presentation, I will first explain my unplugged activities, following by the Scratch program that I developed. Finally, I will explain how the computational thinking and the 7 Scratch computational concepts are integrated into my program. Before discussing my project, this is very important to understand what an ecosystem is. An ecosystem is a community of living organisms such as plants, animals, fungi, and the microorganisms, interacting with one another with non-living things like sunlight, water, air, and soil. All of these living and non-living components depend on one another for survival. In a healthy ecosystem, the energy will flow continuously from the producer to consumer through a food chain or food web. If one part of the ecosystem changes, the entire ecosystem may also change because every organism is connected. So for my project, I choose a forest ecosystem because it provides a simple and meaningful example for the primary school student. The food chain that I use is first from the grass and eat by grasshopper and eat by frog, frog eat by snake, and snake finally eat by eagles. This food chain is clearly show that how the energy moves from one organism to another. The student can easily understand that every species has a different role and that remove one species can affect the balance of the whole ecosystem. So next, let us understand what a species is. A species is a group of living organisms that share the similar characteristics and are able to reproduce naturally to produce a fertile offspring. Every species has an unique role within an ecosystem. For example, in my forest ecosystem, the grass is a producer because it can produce its own food through the photosynthesis. The grasshopper is the primary consumer because it feeds on grass. The frog is the secondary consumer because it eats the grasshopper. The snake is the tertiary consumer because it preys on the frog. Finally, the eagle is the top predator because it feeds on the snake. Although each organism has a different role, they are all connected through the food chain. This means that the survival of one species depends on the others. These ideas become the main focus of my project because the student can investigate what happens if one of these species suddenly disappears. So the science problem in my project is what happens if the grasshopper disappears from the ecosystem. So many students think that removing one small organism will not have much effect. However, through these activities, the students discover that removing just one species can create a chain reaction throughout the ecosystem. When the grasshopper disappears, the grass population increases because fewer grasshoppers are eating it. At the same time, the frog population will decrease because the frog lose an important source of the food. As the frog population decreases, the snake will also have less food available, causing their population to decrease as well. Finally, because of their fewer snakes, the eagle population may also decline. Therefore, the students learn that the ecosystems are interconnected and every species contribute to maintaining the ecological balance. So, the learning objective of these activities are not limited to the science knowledge. Firstly, the student learn to identify the relationship between the different organisms in a food web. Secondly, they learn to predict the consequences of removing one species from an ecosystem. Thirdly, the student apply the 5 computational thinking skills for solving the science problem. Fourthly, the student improve their communications and teamwork skills through the group discussion and presentation. Finally, the student can develop the greatest awareness for the biodiversity conservation and understand why protecting the ecosystem is important for the sustainable living. So these objectives combine the scientific understanding with the higher order thinking skills. For the project 1, I designed an applied classroom activities called the Save the Ecosystem Missions. Instead of learning through the textbook, the students actively participate in the investigations. First, 5 students are selected to represent the glass, grasshopper, frog, snake, and the eagles. Each student will wear a picture badge showing them the organism they represent. Using the rope or web, the student build a food web by connecting each organism according to their feeding relationship. Once the food web is completed, the student will observe the connection and discuss how the energy flows through the ecosystem. Next, the teacher's next mind will announce that the grasshopper has disappeared. So the student will representing the grasshopper will leave the food web. The student immediately noticed that the food web is no longer complete. Working in a group, the students discuss and predict what will happen to the remaining organism. So each group record their predictions before presenting them to the class. Finally, the teachers will explain the correct scientific answer. The students will compare it with their own predictions. At the end of the activities, the students reflect on what every species is important and discuss how the human can protect biodiversity. This activity will encourage the active participation and allow the students to construct a scientific understanding through the investigation rather than the memorization. So now I will explain the 5 computational thinking skills. The first computational thinking skill that I use is decompositions. Decompositions means that breaking a complex problem into the smaller and easier parts. In these activities, the students do not analyze the whole ecosystem immediately. Instead, they first identify each organism individually. They will determine which organism is the producer, which organisms are consumer, and how each organism depends on another for the food. By breaking the ecosystem into the smaller components, the student can understand the function of every species before studying the overall ecosystem. This makes the complication science problem much easier to solve. The second computational thinking skills applied in these activities is the pattern recognition. The pattern recognition is the ability to identify the relationship, repeated behavior, and the connection within a system. In science, recognizing the patterns help the student understand how the different components interact with one another and allow them to make a prediction based on those observations. In these activities, after the student has successfully built the food web, they'll begin to observe the feeding relationship between the organisms. They recognize the energy flow always follow the same patterns, flowing from the producer, which is the glass, to the herbivore, which is the grasshopper, and then to the higher level consumers such as frogs, snakes, and eagles. The students also observe another important patterns. They realize that whenever one population changes, the other populations are affected as well because all organisms in the food web are interconnected. For example, when a grasshopper is removed from the ecosystem, the student notice that the grass population increases because it's no longer being eaten. At the same time, the frog population becomes decreased because the frog lose an important food source. This will affect then the continues to the snake population and eventually affect the eagle population as well. By recognizing this repeated relationship and interaction, the student understands that the ecosystem functions as the interconnected system. They learn that even a small change can create a chain reaction throughout the food web. More importantly, the student use this pattern to predict the future changes in the ecosystem based on the scientific evidence rather than making the random guesses. The computational thinking skill is abstraction. Abstraction is the process of focusing only one important information while ignoring the details that are not directly related to the problem being investigated. In these activities, the student focus on only one scientific situation, which is the disappearance of the grasshopper from the ecosystem. They do not investigate the other environmental factors such as climate change, pollution, disease, natural disaster, or the habitat destruction because of these factors are outside of the scope of the lesson. By limiting the investigation to one variable, the students are able to concentrate on the understanding the relationship between the grasshopper and the other organisms in the food web. This approach made the problem much simpler and easier to analyze. Instead of becoming overwhelmed by many differences environment factors, the student focus only one most related information needed to answer the scientific questions. Through the abstraction, the student can learn that solving a complex scientific problem often begins by identifying the most important information and temporarily ignoring the unnecessary details. This allows them to think more clearly and solve the one scientific problem at a time. The fourth computational thinking skill is algorithm. An algorithm is the sequence of logical and organized steps that are following to solve a problem or complete a task. In both science investigation and computational programming, following a clear sequence of steps helps to ensure the problem is solved systematically and accurately. In these activities, the student can follow a structured procedure throughout the lesson. Firstly, they observe the forest food web and identify the role of each organism within the ecosystem. They identify which organism is the producer and which organisms are consumer. Next, the teachers will remove the grasshopper from the ecosystem to create an investigation scenarios. The students then work together in groups to discuss how this change will affect the remaining organisms. Based on their observations, they predict what will happen to the population of the glass, frog, snake, and eagles. After completing their discussions, each group will present their prediction to the class and explain the scientific reasoning behind the answers. So finally, the teachers will provide the correct scientific explanation and students compare their prediction with the actual outcome before reflecting on what they have learned. Following this organized sequence helps the students solve the scientific problem step by step rather than making the random guesses. At the same time, the students develop systematically thinking and understand that scientific investigation requires a logical procedure supported by the evidence. The fifth and final computational thinking skill applied in these activities is evaluations. Evaluation is the process of checking, analyzing, and improving a solution after completing a task. It allows the student to reflect on their thinking and determine whether the solution is supported by scientific evidence. At the end of the activities, each group will present their prediction about how removing the grasshopper will affect the ecosystem. So the student can compare their answer with the correct scientific explanation provided by teachers. During the discussion, they identify whether the predictions are accurate and recognize any mistake or misconception in their reasoning. For example, some students may initially believe that only flood can affect when the grasshopper disappeared. However, after evaluating the food web, they realized that the decrease in fraud also causes the snake population to decrease, which eventually affect the eagle population as well. So the student also reflect on how the disappearance of a single species can reduce the ecosystem stability and discuss the way to protect the biodiversity and maintain the ecological balance. Through this reflection process, the students improve their scientific understanding, strengthen their critical thinking skills, and become more confident in solving the environmental problem using the evidence-based reasoning. After completing these activities, it's very important for the student to understand why the protecting the ecosystem is essential. A healthy ecosystem will support all living organisms by providing the food, clear water, oxygen, shelter, and suitable habitats. So every species, regardless of its size, has a unique role in maintaining the ecosystem balance. Thus, when one species is disappeared, the food will become unstable. As we have seen in these activities, removing the grasshopper not only affect fruit but also have effect on snake and eagles. This will demonstrate that all organisms are interconnected and depends on one another for survival. Protecting ecosystem also help conserve the biodiversity by preventing the species extinction and preserving the natural habitat for both plants and animals. Besides that, the healthy ecosystem provides essential resources such as food, clean water, and oxygen, which are necessary for human survival and the well-being of all organisms. By learning about the ecosystem interaction, the students become more aware of the importance of protecting our nature. They also develop a sense of environmental responsibility and understand that conserving the biodiversity today will help create a healthier and more sustainable environment for future generations. In conclusion, these unplugged activities will help the student understand that every species will play an important role in maintaining the balance of a forest ecosystem. By investigating what happens when the grasshopper is removed from the food web, the student discovered that every small change can affect many other organisms through a chain reaction. Throughout these activities, the student apply the 5 computational thinking skills: decomposition, pattern recognition, abstraction, algorithm, and evaluation. These skills will help the student break down the complex problem, identify the relationship, focus on relevant information, and evaluate the solution using scientific evidence. As a result, the student not only strengthen their understanding of ecosystem interaction, but also develop an important 21st century skills such as logical thinking, critical thinking, collaborations, communications, and evidence-based problem solving. Overall, these activities successfully integrate science education with a computational thinking while encouraging the student to appreciate the biodiversity and recognize the importance of protecting ecosystem for more sustainable future. Now I will demonstrate my Scratch program. This Scratch program is the digital version of my unplugged editing. The learning objective remain exactly the same, but the student now learn through the animation and interactive quizzes. Firstly, I will click the green flag, the program begin. Next, the program show an animation of the food chain. The student can clearly see that the grasshopper is eaten by a frog and the frog is eaten by snake. Then the teacher will come out and explain how the energy flow through the food chain and why every organism is important. Compared to the static pictures, animations will help the student visualize the ecosystem more effectively. After the explanation, the student begin the interactive quizzes. There are 5 questions related to the prediction of effect of removing the species. Instead of simply memorizing the facts, the student need to think carefully before selecting an answer. When the student answer correctly, the score increases. If the answer is incorrect, the program will immediately inform them so that they can learn from the mistake. At the end of the quiz, the final score is displayed. This allows the student to evaluate their own understanding immediately. Overall, this Scratch program will transform the traditional science learning into an engaging and interactive experience. So now I will explain the 7 Scratch concepts that I use in my program. So firstly, the first computational concept that I use is sequence. Sequence means that instructions are executed one after another in a logical order. In my Scratch program, the program follows a clear sequence. When a green flag is clicked, the food chain animation is displayed. After that, the student receives an explanation about the energy flow. A teacher will introduce for them. Only does the quiz begin, finally the score is displayed. Because every instruction is arranged logically, the student can easily follow the learning progress. Then the second concept that I use is event. Event trigger the actions within the Scratch program. In my project, the green flag event start the entire program. I also use the broadcast messages to move from one session to another, such as from the introduction to the explanation and then to the quiz session. This will help me organize the program into a smaller session while allowing the different sprites to communicate with one another. Next one, I use the loops. Loops allow the instruction to repeat automatically. In my Scratch program, I use repeat block together with the wait block during the animations and explanation. Instead of writing the same code many times, the loop will help me to reduce the repetitions and make the program more efficient. Next one is parallelism. Parallelism means different scripts run at the same time. For example, when the teacher's sprite is explaining the lesson, another sprite is moving or changing the costume. This will create a more natural and realistic learning experience because several actions happen simultaneously. Next one is conditional. Conditional will allow the program to make decisions. In the quiz session, the program checks whether the student answer is correct. If the answer is correct, score will increase and positive feedback is shown. Otherwise, the program displays an incorrect message and continue to the next questions. This made the quiz interactive rather than simply display the information. Next one is operator. Operator are used to compare the values and the progress informations. In my project, the operator compared the student answer with the correct answer. The operator will help the Scratch decide whether the answer is correct before executing the appropriate instruction. Finally, my Scratch project using data through the score variable. The score starts at 0 when the program begins. Each correct answer will increase the score by 2. At the end of the quiz, the variable store and display the student total score. Using a variable will allow the student to immediately evaluate their own performance. So, in conclusion, this project successfully combined the science learning with computational thinking. The unplugged activities allow the student to investigate the ecosystem interaction through the hands-on learning, while the Scratch program will extend the self-learning experience using the digital technology. Both activities will encourage the student to think logically, solve the problem systematically, and understand that every species plays an important role in maintaining ecosystem balance. More importantly, the student develop both scientific knowledge and computational thinking skills, preparing them to become a problem solver in the future. I think that's all from me. Thank you.